tonight, His Majesty the King says the Arab world and Europe are united in rejecting terrorism which respects no border. President Obama seeks to convince Gulf Arab allies that the United States is committed to their security despite their deep concern about an Iran nuclear deal. And Palestinians commemorate the anniversary of Nakba, Israel's displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from their land. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. His Majesty the King returned home at the end of a European working tour that took him to Albania and Germany. Addressing a ceremony in Aachen, Germany, of the International Charlemagne Prize to honor EU Parliament President Martin Schulz, King Abdullah said ideologies of hatred and violence kill coexistence and fuel Islamophobia. He said terrorists respect no borders and that requires a focused international defense. His Majesty said no crisis creates more global division and radicalization than the long confrontation between the Palestinians and Israelis. He also told the ceremony, attended by leaders and European and international figures, that Jordan is determined to move forward despite regional turmoil and economic hardship. Here's a recording of the King's speech.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mayor Philippe, Dr. Linden, Your Majesty, President Gauck, President Hollande, Excellencies, my dear friend, President Schulz, thank you. It is an honor to visit this historic city and share in this wonderful occasion. Aachen, the seat of Charlemagne's Europe, is famed today as a champion of modern European unity and peace. And I want to thank especially the Board of Directors for inviting me to take part in this year's ceremonies. I join you from Jordan, a friend and neighbor of Europe, to recognize a man who has been a friend and neighbor to our entire region. President Schulz, on behalf of so many, allow me to congratulate you today on this wonderful, wonderful occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't need to tell you the profound interests that are shared between Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. What happens in one of our regions can and often does directly impact what happens in the other. People, goods, and ideas flow between us like any neighborhood. But also like any neighborhood, we face common dangers. Isolation is not the answer. Walls are not the answer. Suspicion of the other is not the answer. And as Europe has shown, as Martin Schulz has affirmed, peace and prosperity are secured only by coexistence in a partnership of mutual strengths based on mutual respect. From the beginning, the EU has recognized a special relationship with neighboring countries, including us, your neighbors to the south. And as President Schulz has made clear, that relationship calls for common action on many fronts. First and foremost is the simple act of defending the principle of mutual respect. Ideologies of hatred and violence kill coexistence and fuel Islamophobia. And such divisions simply play into the hands of violent extremists. They erode the contributions of good citizens, the vast, vast majority of Europe's Muslims. Many Europeans in the EU and across society are working to counter such wrongs. And we must continue to work together. Jordan is a Muslim country with a deeply rooted Christian community. We count respect for human dignity among our deepest national values of tolerance and moderation. Our country has led a global interfaith dialogue, and we will continue to work closely with Europe as a friend and partner to strengthen this dialogue. Another area of solidarity is the defense against terrorism. In my region and elsewhere, we are seeing the devastating impact of the Khawarij, outlaws of Islam, on social peace and cohesion. The Arab world and Europe are united in rejecting these criminals and their heinous acts. In Paris, in Tunis, in Amman, in Strasbourg, and at the Brandenburg Gate, and in many other places, people have stood together to uphold our shared values. Terrorists respect no borders. Our defense must be equally international and focused. And in this, the EU plays a central role. President Schulz has called for a global partnership against terrorism. And I know that in the days ahead, our cooperation in all areas will continue to grow. I must also say a word about the EU partnership on economic affairs. In the Arab world, young people make up 65% of the population. Too many lack opportunity at the starting gate of their lives. No work, no hope, makes young people targets for radicals. Our young deserve better options, options that will bring them what they really need: good jobs and good prospects, and stable communities to build fulfilling lives. And young Europeans deserve just the same. Economic cooperation is key to meeting those needs. And my friend President Schulz, let me recognize the support of the European Parliament in this regard. Your personal commitment to development helps both in managing the current challenges and getting all our countries in positioning for a stronger future. And may I say that my own country is resolute about moving forward, even in the midst of serious regional turmoil and economic challenges. Europe's support for Jordan is essential, and we highly, highly appreciate so many of you in the room that have stood by our country. Finally, let me say a word about the long confrontation between Palestinians and Israelis. No single crisis creates more global division and radicalization. No single issue has endangered our neighborhood's security and stability for longer. No occupation more cruelly flouts the first principle in the European Charter, the principle of peace. Human dignity is inviolable. For millions of people around the world, tomorrow, May 15th, is best known as Al-Nakba, the catastrophe, the beginning of Palestinian exile 67 years ago. A Palestinian boy or girl born on that day has spent a lifetime without the opportunities of peace and dignity of independence. The grandchildren of that generation, part of a global world, are asking, where is this global justice I hear about? Why rights for others and not for us? What is required now is the parties, both sides, their willpower, the same willpower that helped Europe find its future, that will to live in peace and mutual respect. Europe, therefore, has such a vital role to provide these openings for change and to convey a strong message, a message that you know in your hearts. Security comes only with peace, and peace comes only with respect and coexistence. This message is the special power of the European Parliament, with its millions of voices and its greatest voice, Martin Schulz. So President Schulz, your distinguished record teaches the world that even in challenging times, it is our duty to keep moving forward in dialogue and in mutual respect. So I am very proud to be here to congratulate you again on this wonderful award that you received today. And I always look forward to our meetings and to the many more years of your leadership for Europe as well as the world. And I thank you very much for this occasion. Vielen Dank.
In Berlin, King Abdullah held talks with German Chancellor Angela Merkel and President Joachim Gauck. The talks focused on cementing Jordanian-German relations in various fields, in addition to developments in the Middle East. The king stressed the need for a holistic strategy by international powers and key parties to confront all forms of terrorism and radicalism. His Majesty said world efforts should be stepped up to create conditions conducive to revive the peace process between the Palestinians and the Israelis. In Aachen, on the sidelines of the International Charlemagne Prize ceremony, King Abdullah met Finnish President Sauli Niinisto. The two leaders discussed ties between Jordan and Finland and ways to further boost cooperation in various fields. The talks also tackled developments in the Middle East, anti-terrorism efforts, and the need to bring about peace and security in the region and the world. President Barack Obama updated leaders from Gulf states on international efforts to forge a nuclear deal with Iran. U.S. Deputy National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes said the United States would welcome support from Gulf countries for the deal. Many Arab leaders are concerned an Iran deal would empower Tehran in the region. During a rare, high-profile summit at the Camp David presidential retreat, House officials said the summit will produce announcements on integrating ballistic missile defense systems and increasing joint military exercises. Dozens of people, mainly African workers and their families, were evacuated out of the conflict-torn Yemen amid a humanitarian ceasefire. The International Organization of Migration resumed the evacuation flights from Sana'a to the Sudanese capital Khartoum following the announcement of the truce. The organization had suspended evacuation flights twice last month, once citing administrative difficulties and the next time following the aerial bombing of Sana'a runway. Concerns was growing that the Saudi-led airstrikes and the fighting between the Houthi tribal militias and Yemeni forces will cause a humanitarian catastrophe. Daesh terrorist group is reported to be getting closer to the Syrian city of Palmyra amid fierce battle with the government forces. Palmyra is home to a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Syrian antiquity chief warned that if the radical group seized the city, they would destroy it as they did before in Iraq. In Cairo, the Secretary General of the Arab League and head of the UN Cultural Agency, UNESCO, vowed to protect heritage and fight extremism after attacks by Daesh on ancient sites. Irina Bokova, Director General of UNESCO, attended a conference in the Egyptian capital that discussed ways to protect the region's culture, heritage, and identity. Bokova told the meeting she felt a deep sense of responsibility towards the heritage of the region.
Protecting of heritage, I think both agree that what is happening, the destruction of heritage, is totally unacceptable, and that we have to fight extremism.
The Muslim world celebrates the religious occasion of Isra wal Mi'raj, the Prophet Muhammad's nocturnal journey to heaven. Representing His Majesty the King, His Royal Highness Prince Faisal led a grand ceremony organized by the Ministry of Awqaf and Religious Affairs at the Royal Cultural Center. In his sermon, Awqaf Minister Hayil Dawood recalled the noble and bright message of the journey of Isra wal Mi'raj, which he said was hijacked by the gangs that use such names as Islamic State and Islamic Caliphate to export their blemished creed and its manifestations of slaying, burning, and beheadings, contrary to the true Islamic tenet of compassion. He said, "Today we are in a dire need to correct people's misconception of our true religion and to direct the youth toward work, creation and innovation instead of bombing and suicide to contribute to building human civilization." On the holy occasion, King Abdullah received cables of good wishes from Jordanian officials and heads of states of Arab and Muslim countries. His Royal Highness Crown Prince Hussein also received similar cables from senior civic and military officials. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour, chairman of the Public-Private Partnership Council, presided over the council's first meeting. The Partnership Council was set up under the Public-Private Partnership Law, which was passed by the Parliament recently. During the meeting, Mansour emphasized the importance of the public-private partnership in contributing to stimulating the private sector's role in implementing development projects in Jordan. He called for accelerating procedures, empowering the private sector to participate in government projects according to the Public-Private Partnership Law, which aims to create, rehabilitate, operate and maintain public infrastructure. The partnership is aimed to encourage the private sector to partner with the government in investment projects, find the necessary funding to support feasible government projects, and benefit from the expertise and technical know-how in establishing modern enterprise and management. Palestinians hold a rally in the occupied West Bank to commemorate the 67th anniversary of Nakba, the day when, in 1948, Israeli forces displaced hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from their land. Palestinian protesters took to the street of the city of Ramallah to demand Israel leave their lands after decades of occupation. Palestinians also carried the maps of Palestine and large metal keys, which are a national symbol of houses lost decades ago. Many participants in the march that took place in the west city of Ramallah wore black T-shirts with the message 1948, "The return is a right and the will of the people." This is a reference to the right of Palestinians to return to their home. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delayed announcing his cabinet lineup after the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, passed his proposal to increase the number of ministers in his cabinet. The vote enabled Netanyahu to begin summoning Likud's parliament's members to reveal the distribution of cabinet positions within the party. Netanyahu appointed member of the Knesset, Yuval Steinitz, as Minister of Energy and Infrastructure, Moshe Ya'alon to stay on as Defense Minister. And after a meeting between Netanyahu and Transport Minister Yisrael Katz, it was announced the minister will retain the transport portfolio and will receive the intelligence portfolio as well. Swiss maestro Roger Federer had to dig deep to defeat Uruguay's Pablo Cuevas 7-6, 6-4 in the second round of the Italian Open in Rome. Federer, who has never won the competition, was pushed hard by Cuevas, but the victory never looked in doubt as Federer played a range of sublime shots and didn't need to face a single break point. The Italian Open is one of the only ATP World Tour Masters 1000 titles still missing from Federer's collection. Although he has reached the final in Rome 3 times, his last loss to great rival Rafael Nadal in 2013. Federer joined Nadal as well as in-form Andy Murray in the third round, where he will face South Africa's Kevin Anderson. Slovakia's Peter Sagan of Team Tinko Saxo surged ahead of the final uphill sprint to win the 4th stage of the Amgen Tour of California. After finishing second in the first 3 stages, Sagan raced to his 12th career stage victory in the California race. He finished the 173-kilometer leg from Pismo Beach to Avila Beach in 4 hours, 6 minutes and 56 seconds. The 1,165-kilometer Tour of California finishes in Pasadena outside Los Angeles on Sunday. And a quick look at the weather forecast. A bit cool tonight in most parts of the kingdom with a low of 16 degrees in Amman, but pleasant in the Jordan Valley and Aqaba with northwesterly moderate winds. Tomorrow, a cool condition prevail across many areas, but it will be milder in Aqaba and the Jordan Valley with moderate winds and a chance for light showers in the north. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a pleasant night and fair conditions tomorrow with northerly moderate winds picking up at times and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to end the news, here's a recap of our top stories. His Majesty the King says the Arab world and Europe are united in rejecting terrorism, which respects no borders. President Obama seeks to convince Gulf Arab allies that the United States is committed to their security despite their deep concern about an Iran nuclear deal. And Palestinians commemorate the anniversary of Nakba, Israel's displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from their land. And with this we come to an end. I'm Farah Ajlouni. Thank you for watching and have a good night.